Daryl. Can you guys hear me all right? Okay. Yeah, first I just want to thank Daryl and just for this opportunity to be with you guys, to be with our Longmont family, of course. Yeah, we really appreciate everything that you guys do. We really appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what God is doing in Vienna. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jake Heskew, and along with my wife Amanda and our two girls, Katie, and our oldest girl, Abby, although she's in college now, we're missionaries in Vienna, Austria, and we've been there now for over 16 years. And but before I get started, I'd like to go ahead and show a quick video. Let's see. Yeah, I'll have them put the video on, and then we'll watch that here.
Yeah, I'm Anika. I'm from Ukraine.
Okay. My name is Jason Wright, and this is my wife. What's your name again? Natalie. Yeah. From South Africa. And
Von woher kommst du?
Ich stamme aus Persien.
He's from Iran.
yeah, my name is Jordan.
Where are you from?
I'm from Cuba.
He's from Cuba.
Katie Heskew.
Where are you from?
Well, my home has always been Austria.
I enjoy people, and especially I enjoy that in this difficult situation I can feel here like with a real family, like at home, and like I'm in a safe place, and I'm really happy.
This church has been my family here. I'm making coffee. What I enjoy about the Donau Gemeinde here is the diversity and the different cultures and the uniqueness of it, and how everybody's very open and welcoming because of that.
And I enjoy the fellowship, obviously, but I also enjoy all the new faces every week.
Well, I love how comfortable I feel when I'm with them, and they just create such a loving and comfortable environment.
All I do is ask for your forgiveness. You already made reply. Since he came, my heart is filled with gladness. I won't ever have to lie.
In the morning, so we have coffee and cake to start out with, and so I sit here and push buttons and hand out coffee so that I'm everybody's favorite person. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. Isn't that right, Jason?
And therein lies the secret.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
Hear the holy roar of God resound. Hear the holy roar of God resound. Once the waters part before.
Some of my other favorite moments or memories of our work here, actually they have happened around our kitchen table, our dining room table, having people into our home and sharing a meal with them and getting to know them, and through that being able to then share the story of Jesus with them.
Yeah, I think definitely like the one-on-one conversations, you know, those things where either you've had a moment with somebody and they've had a moment of clarity, they've had a moment of thankfulness, or they've had a deep, personal encounter in a sense with Jesus, and you're able to be a part of that, and you embrace, or there's tears maybe, or there's joy, and just that kind of stuff is just, yeah, it's really a great highlight.
He reigns now and forever. His enemies will run for sure.
supervising Jason while he cleans the toilet. Way to go.
He's just cleaning the floor. We've already cleaned the
I
floor.
try my best.
So, who are we? I know some of you may not know who we are. Again, my name is Jake, and I'm Steve and Ann's son. And I'm a graduate of Oklahoma Christian University, with a degree in engineering, and then a master's degree in business, so well qualified to go to the mission field. But we've always had a heart for missions, and we were involved in the student missions organization while at Oklahoma Christian. And so after I graduated, we were just searching and asking God what was His will for our life. And He sent us then in 2007 with 4 other families to do church planting, specifically house church planting in Vienna, Austria. And at this point, we have a planted church. It's called the Donaugemeinde Christi in German. In Austria, they speak German. It's like an Austrian version of German, if you will. So like British English, American English, you have Austrian German, you have German German, and then you have Swiss German, yeah, which is also different. So, which of course then translate to Danube Church of Christ. Righty then. So, okay. What I'd like to start out with is just to talk a little bit about what's been going on for the last couple of years. And then with each of these kind of things that we talk about, I want to highlight one of our special people, if you will. So the last 2 years we could kind of summarize as transition. We've been in a lot of transition. First of all, with COVID, right? We were coming out of COVID with lockdowns and masks. As you can see, we were worshiping. We're all bundled up because the windows were open, right? So we could worship together, but bundled up with masks, all that kind of thing, and we've been transitioning out of that. Our team has also been in transition. So the teammates that we've had for the last 9 years have taken other jobs. And so we as a family have been transitioning and now are the only full-time supported missionaries there. Yeah, we've been transitioning as a church. As I said, we went to plant House Church. But what we found is House Church, we don't think maybe Austria or Vienna specifically is ready for House Church. And a lot of our members, we thought when we went initially that we would be working with and reaching people that were around where we lived, and we did that initially. But as time, and of course the Lord has brought us other people and refugees and things like that nature, people now come from all over Vienna to worship with us, and so we needed a more central location. So we're transitioning as a church from our house, worshiping in our house, to the OC facility, the Oklahoma Christian facility, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The world has transitioned as well, right? So Europe specifically has transitioned from a time of stability and peace to a time of uncertainty and war. And in transition, there is a lot of emotions involved. I don't know if you're familiar with sort of the psychology of transition or the emotions involved. Probably everybody has had at least some kind of transition. And so when you're going through transition, you have two sort of sides, right? You have the things that you've transitioned out of, the things that you have lost, right? Maybe it could be a relationship, could be a location, it could be a loved one, who knows, right? So, but you're transitioning from some sort of loss, but usually accompanying that or going along with that, you have something that you're looking forward to, right? Something that's exciting, something that's new, a new job or a new location or something like that. But unfortunately for us, it felt like the last 2 years we've had only mostly mourning, right? We've had only, we've been mourning these losses that we've had. And it's only been recently where we've kind of seen what God is doing perhaps in the future and we've been excited about. And, but in one of these weeks where we were having a very difficult week, we were mourning a lot of loss and also dealing with a lot of physical loss because we were dealing with some things that were stolen by someone that we had trusted. And as we were going through this, having a very difficult week, Bobby, he's the young man, he's still somewhat young, there in this picture. This was taken when he was baptized, so this is about 10 years ago, and he's still with us. Bobby called me up, and the thing about Bobby is he is the epitome of faithfulness, okay? He was with us really since the beginning. The first few people we reached were two of his friends, and then they invited Bobby. And so he's been with us this whole time. He's been faithful to us. He's been faithful to the congregation, faithful to God, faithful to the kingdom. And we're just so thankful for Bobby and his faithfulness. And so he called me up. He had something else that was going on. He asked me a few questions about something, but he could tell something was that I wasn't having a good day. And he said, okay, let me take care of this and let me call you back. And so he calls me back, and in that moment, he just reassured me of our role in the congregation, our role in this mission. And he said something, and sometimes when Bobby says things, he can say sometimes some off-the-wall things, and so you don't always know whether you should take him seriously or not. But he said, look, Jake, I don't know why this stuff is happening, but I do know that it is for the best. That whatever's happening, however it comes out on the other side, that this is God's will and that he is working in you, and your role here is very important and still needed, and it's going to work out for the best. And I knew because of his faithfulness and for who he was, that he was speaking truth, and that gave me quite a bit of encouragement, and I knew he was right, and so we're excited about what God is going to be doing here in the future. So currently, as I mentioned, we transitioned from house church to basically a house church, but we meet in a facility. So you can still see we have sort of the elements of a house church. We meet in circles. It's very kind of low key. It's very relaxed. Sometimes in our Bible time, we have a lot of discussion. We start out with coffee and cake as usual. But we meet in Das Milliken House, which is the Oklahoma Christian facility in Vienna. So Oklahoma Christian has a study abroad program. They bought this it's kind of a part of a hotel, and we are graciously allowed to use their facility. It's a great facility. We're glad to have it. We're so thankful to be there. So that's our location and how we're worshiping. The other thing that we've been doing here recently is transitioning the congregation from basically kind of a new congregation to one of maturity, okay? So in that transition with COVID and those kind of things, we have a different looking congregation even than we did 2 years ago, except for Bobby, really. He's our faithful guy. And so we need to move this congregation from one of sort of immaturity to one of maturity. And one of the things I always wanted to do, right, so 16 years, we've never done this, is to really allow the congregants, right, to allow these believers to examine and look, what are their spiritual gifts? And then as a congregation, not on an individual basis, right, but as a congregation, to each of these members say, these are your spiritual gifts. We empower you to use them. And so this is what we've been doing for the last few months. We first started out studying the spiritual gifts and learning about them, and then we had them take kind of like a spiritual gift assessment where it showed sort of like their top 3 gifts. And then we had them send those to Amanda and I, and then during worship on Sunday, we did this over a couple of Sundays, we said, okay, these are your top 3 gifts, and none of them were really surprising to us, and we said, look, we see these gifts already working inside of you, and now we are empowering you to use these gifts for this congregation, for God's kingdom, and for this community. And so when we go back in the fall, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, we're going to encourage them and be looking for ways that they can use those spiritual gifts. And that brings me to this couple, Ricardo and Paz. So my wife here, you can see where she's sitting, and then Katie's right next to her, and then the couple on the other side of the door, that's Ricardo and Paz. And they've come to us recently. They're from El Salvador. And so now we're not only translating German, English, Russian when we have our older Ukrainians with us. Some of them need Russian translation now. Paz doesn't speak any English or German. She only speaks Spanish. So now we're translating also into Spanish for her. But they came to us kind of looking for a congregation, and they both have the gift of teaching, which is something that our congregation needed. And the congregation really just has embraced them. Even though there's a language barrier there, you could tell the love that they had for us and for the Lord. And they've embraced our congregation as well, and we're so thankful to have them. One of the other things that they have a huge heart for, not only teaching, but also for Cuba. You don't maybe see it a lot in the mainstream media here, but Cuba is in a very, very difficult situation right now. And so we've been looking at ways, also Jordan, one of our members is from Cuba. We've been looking at ways as how our congregation can bless the church and the people in Cuba. And they have a huge heart for that, and they've been kind of helping us navigate those waters. So we're very thankful to have Ricardo and Paz with us. Right. Oh, by the way, I meant to mention we'll have questions and answer session after this. So if you have any questions or you're thinking of something, just kind of hold those to the end, and we'll definitely take those as well. So we've been in a refugee crisis literally since 2014. So Vienna, Austria has always been a place where refugees will try to get to, mostly from African countries initially, some Middle East. But when the refugee crisis of 2014 hit, of course, you just had this flood of refugees. And basically, it hasn't really totally let up. And so there's always constant something that we're doing with refugees, or somebody's contacting me, hey, can you I know this person, they just got to Austria, or they're having trouble with their asylum or something, or, they're interested in Christianity. And so those things are always kind of coming up. And then enter the war in Ukraine, and we have yet another refugee crisis. And some of this, the refugee crisis, has been, somewhat similar, dealing with bureaucracy, trying to get their kids into school, those kind of things. But some of it has been unique in the sense of the Ukrainians already are familiar with kind of Western, how, we do things in the West. They don't have to learn necessarily the Latin alphabet. A lot of them speak English. A lot of them are already have jobs or can continue to do their jobs online. Some of them are studying, they can continue to do that. So there are some things that are similar, but also some things that are unique. And so, but it has brought us several families, of course, within the congregation. That's just been a huge blessing, Annika being one of them, and I'll talk a little bit more about her. But the other blessing that we didn't have before is that this latest refugee crisis has forced the congregations in Europe to work closer together. So you always kind of had, oh, I know this person in this country, or I know this person there, and there's always kind of like, yeah, if you're looking for a congregation maybe in Romania or in Hungary or something, yeah, I think I know somebody there, or you can try this person. But this crisis has really brought us into more communication, because when you had a flood of refugees coming into Romania, the church there did an excellent job of really kind of embracing that. They actually ended up buying a second building, housing refugees and feeding them on an ongoing basis. Well, then the Ukrainian refugees there in Romania realized that Romania is maybe not the place that they want to stay long term, or at least wait out the war, or however they're sort of thinking. And so they were looking then to go to another country. And so, but they didn't know anybody in any of these other countries. And so the church there started contacting us and others to try to figure out, okay, where do we have contacts? Where can we send these refugees to where we know that they will be taken care of? And so I got put into a Facebook group with all these other people maybe I had met once or twice, or maybe I'd heard their name. And then all of a sudden we are coordinating very closely together to try to move these Ukrainian refugees from Romania to maybe another country, or maybe to a family member in another country where they want to be. And so we have churches in the Czech Republic, in Poland, Romania, Germany, Netherlands, all working together to try to move these refugees from one place to another, providing for them, making sure they have a place to stay, making sure they're being fed, or whatever they might need to get them to a place of safety. And so that brings us to this family, and I've tried to think about how can I condense the story of this family into just the few minutes that we had. They were our very first ones that came from Romania that we got put in this Facebook group. Basically, it was like, we're sending this family. They don't know where they want to go. They just know they don't want to stay in Romania. Can they come to you? I mean, that was literally all the instructions I had. I said, yes, of course, send them to us. We'll take care of them, and we'll see what's going on. So from basically, they don't know where they want to go. They just know they don't want to stay in this. This was unique to them. This was very interesting. They were afraid to stay in any kind of German-speaking country, okay, which I guess I could sort of understand that, right? So they were hoping that they could maybe get to an English-speaking country, or at least English is one of the majority languages, so not necessarily the UK, but like the Netherlands or maybe Sweden. And so, yeah, they came to us. We started thinking of possibilities. Amanda contacted a church, a lady she knew with a church in the Netherlands. And so through this whole process, right, they just only had my name, my contact data, my phone number, which I use Telegram or something. I can't remember, WhatsApp. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing, right? So now I have WhatsApp, I have Telegram, I have Signal, and I use Facebook Messenger, right? And so, you know, it's like this whole web of things that you're using to try to help this one family out. And then, of course, they were only the first, and we've used these to help several families out. So, yeah, you're also thinking on your feet. But anyways, long story short, this family shows up. They don't know English. They don't know German. We're using Google Translate, right? Translating from English to Russian. They're translating from Russian to English. But we did have some contacts already that helped us out as well. We got them settled. We got them a place to stay. They needed some clothes and different things. We were helping them with that. They were waiting in Vienna for Grandma to show up. So Grandma was still in Ukraine, and she was supposed to take the train into Vienna. Of course, she didn't show up on the train she was supposed to be at. This was like, kind of in the height of the war. We're freaking out. We're praying. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to get a hold of Grandma. Grandma doesn't speak English or German, right? We're just praying that she's somewhere in Poland, hopefully, at this point. And so finally she was able to get Wi-Fi access, I think, and let them know that that her train got delayed or canceled or something, I don't know. So she'd be coming in on a later train. So again, doing all this through Google Translate with Russian, quite the experience. But long story short, with this family, his name's Adrian, her name is Eugenia. I don't remember actually the kids' names. But the long story short is it was incredible to see the work and how God worked in this family's life to bring them to safety in the Netherlands, plugged into the church. And last update we had, they were learning English. He was doing a job training. The kids were in school. And so in safety, thankful to be in the Netherlands. And, they asked us kind of point blank, like, why are you doing this? Like, what's the purpose? Or, why are you here? And so, in that moment, you basically say, you only have maybe a few lines, or how will that translate into Russian? So you just say, well, we love Jesus, and we love people, and we want you to be safe. And, they could understand that. So yeah, we're very thankful for how God worked in that couple's life to bring them to safety in the Netherlands. So that kind of brings us somewhat to the end. And where does that look like for us in the future? Well, like I mentioned, we've presented this idea of spiritual gifts to our congregation. And when we go back in the fall, we're going to be helping them to look at opportunities and ways to empower them to use those gifts for the kingdom, for the church, and for the community. As maybe you saw, one of the titles in the video was fellowship. One of the things we used to do is worship with. So there's a total of 3 congregations in Vienna. There's ours. There's kind of the original German congregation, and then there's a complete refugee congregation that does worship in Farsi, which is the language they speak in Iran. And one of the things we used to do was when there was a 5th Sunday, we would worship all together, right, and have a fellowship meal. And we kind of got out of the habit of that, and we've started doing that again here in the last few months, because those were some of the first people that we met, and there's some very dear friendships to us and to Bobby. And we knew that for our congregation, it was important for them to have fellowship with other church members, with other Christians. And so when there's a 5th Sunday, we always worship together and have a fellowship meal. And we're looking at other ways where we can do some cooperation together. As I mentioned, we were in house groups. These other groups in Vienna also don't have any kind of permanent facility. And so one of the things that we're thinking about is, and a lot of our inspiration actually comes here from Longmont. What if there was a facility in Vienna that all the churches were allowed to use, worship, activity, or whatever, that we went in together to purchase or to use, so that the church in Vienna had a permanent location for when visitors come for worship and or doing activities. And not just a facility that was only open on Sunday from, let's say, 10 till, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 or however many groups it takes to do worship. But what if it was a facility like what you guys have here, right? Where throughout the week, there were programs, there were things being offered to the community. So the community could go and whatever need that they might have, be able to get that at that facility. And so that's kind of really what our vision is. So we're not talking about combining the churches, okay? But we're talking about, what if the churches cooperated on a facility, right, where we could each have worship, if we needed to divide it out, or maybe in separate rooms, kind of like what you guys do here, as we have obviously some various languages and challenges with that, but would also enable us then to do fellowship all together, to do these programs for the community. So that's kind of the future that we feel or we're praying about for Vienna. And then to kind of close out with one more story. This is Annika. That's how you spell her name. At least that's how she told me that she spells it. She comes from, obviously, Ukraine. And we see her also in these young people. So everybody in the congregation is younger than us. This is a kind of a new phase, a transition for us. So before Ricardo and Paz came, I'm pretty sure they're older than us. Everybody in the congregation is younger than us, right? And we see this as the future. These young people are the future of the church in Vienna. And Annika is one of those people, right? She came to us from the Ukraine. She wasn't a Christian. She had grown up in the church, but she'd kind of fallen away. She wasn't sure. And when she came to us, she was studying actually with an American over Zoom and other Ukrainians. And she came to Vienna, decided to be baptized. She was baptized and now has been faithful to our congregation. Our congregation has really embraced her. She's embraced us. As you saw, like, we are her family. And she... and so we're very excited. She asks great questions, right? So she doesn't just come and worship on Sunday. No, she's reading on her own. She always either texts me or she comes on Sunday with these great questions, and kind of a great interaction between her and Ricardo. She came on Sunday. She had a question about 1 Corinthians 13. She asked me about it, and before I could even, Ricardo was standing there. We had been talking. Before I could even answer, he just kind of went in and did a great job of explaining this one passage from 1 Corinthians 13 and how it works with love and love continuing and the love that we'll have for eternity. And he did such a great job with such simple language to explain it to her. All I had to do was stand there. And I thought, man, this is exactly how it should happen, right? He's using his gift of teaching, and she's exploring and getting deeper in God's word. And so we're very excited about the future for Annika and the future of the congregation in Vienna. And the other thing that Annika brings is some very delicious homemade cakes. So we have a fellowship meal. Just our congregation has a fellowship meal once a month. The first Sunday of every month is our fellowship Sunday. And she always brings these great homemade cakes that are extremely delicious. And so we really hope that she'll decide to stay permanently in Vienna. So we'll just have to see. When peace comes to Ukraine, it will come. But yeah, we're just so thankful for Annika and just her sweet spirit and her curiosity about God's word, and having her in Vienna. So now, I think I'm kind of done talking for a while. I think we have a few more minutes, so I'd like to just open it up to any questions that you might have, or any information you'd like to know more about. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. We're all about centrally located from it. So it takes us, we drive, it takes us about 20 minutes to get there. If Bobby, so like us and Bobby, we're about opposite sides of the city. It probably takes him also about 20. What did Olga say how long it takes her to get there with public? Probably about 20. I would say with public also for most people, it's probably between 10 and 20 minutes. Whereas like, we kind of live on the edge of the city, so like for Olga, for them especially, if they were coming to our house, it's a good 45 minutes. It's an over an hour with public on Sunday, just to get to our place. So we knew that had to change, and it just, transition. The thing is, Austrians love their quiet time as well, and Sunday is a quiet day. Ask my dad. He was in Vienna. And he was kind of joking around. There was a can on the street. He put his foot in the can. Sorry, Dad, I'm going to tell the story. He put his foot on the can, so it starts clopping, making that clopping sound with an aluminum can on your foot. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? It's Sunday. Like, you can't do that, It's like quiet. I mean, because it was dead quiet. I mean, you could hear this, right? And there's like tall buildings like ricocheting off. I'm like, oh, man. Right? Yeah, so when you have people, coming in and out, whether it's an apartment or a house, that disturbs your neighbors. And, so Austrians, they really love their quiet. And we just feel like the facility was a really good way to help with location, quiet, and it's also bigger, so we can take more people. Yes, hi, good to see you. Okay. Yeah. Yes, there are. I know it looks like. Yeah. Well, and she's correct. But we do have, we have Austrians. Yeah, Bobby, he grew up in Austria. He's Austrian. He's kind of a unique Austrian in a sense, probably. Jordan, so he's from Cuba, but his wife is Austrian as well. So we have at least two. Yeah. So we have more. We have Cubans, we have Austrians, we have Americans, we have El Salvadorians, we have Ukrainian, we have Iranian. Yeah, Cuban. South African as well. Yeah, I mean, we are definitely multicultural, multilingual. Yeah, I mean, we are constantly translating into some language, and it can be a little bit. Everyone's kind of embraced it at this point. It's it can be kind of, it can make things a lot longer, but it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Yeah.
I was going to say, how do you translate so many different languages in one Bible study?
Right. So usually what I do is I'll say something like, welcome and thank you for coming to my presentation. also willkommen, dass du zu meiner Veranstaltung gekommen bist. And then from then, I'll usually start in German and go to English. So, thanks for coming to my presentation. And then I'll kind of pause so that then for the Russians, she'll just turn. So like for the Russian and Spanish, they sit next to each other, and then they just turn and then translate that into kind of the ear of the next person. The Persians at this point, the Iranians, we don't have to translate because their German is good enough. We did have one lady come recently, and we were contemplating whether she should be translated, if we should translate for her or not, but a lot of them say, no, please don't translate because I need to learn German. But if it was like a one-on-one Bible study, then I would probably. But yeah, so it's typically that. So I'll do it in German, then I'll repeat it in English, and then I'll kind of pause while then the other groups then are translated. But that's what we're doing at this point.
So you said you have some other groups that are meeting in their own languages. Are those separate, like house churches, or what? Like, what are those groups?
Yeah.
How are they fitting into all of it?
Sure. So the one is kind of, it's the existing congregation in Vienna. They're an older congregation, and they worship only in German, although right now they have a younger man from, where is he from? I don't know, Nigeria maybe? And that's right, he's South African as well, sorry. And they do translate for him. And so when we came to Vienna, the idea is we'd spend the first year worshiping with that existing congregation and learning German and getting acclimated. And so that's what we did. And then after about a year, or a little over a year, it was like, okay, now we're going to go, and we had already moved, and we were going to target another part of the city for evangelism and house church. And that's what we did. And over time, they've moved locations, and we've sort of moved locations, and a lot of things have changed. But it's sort of like having, like one congregation. It originally was one congregation on one side of the city, one congregation kind of on the other side of the city. That was the original idea. And now as we literally have physically moved closer together, we feel like maybe spiritually and other things we can move together. They are very more traditional style like this. So they have they don't have pews, but they have rows of chairs, and that their worship is very, very more traditional style a little bit, if you will. The songbook they use is from the 1950s, I think, or 60s. Whereas we meet in a circle, and we're a little, more, different. I don't know how to say that. Informal, more informal. And then the other group was formed from a lady who's always been doing refugee work for a long time. Most of it was with Romanian, I can't think of the word right now, and Africans. And then during the crisis, and now it's mostly turned into a ministry to Iranians as well. And so they only worship in Farsi. So he usually preaches in German or English, depending on who's doing his translation, and then they translate to Farsi. So no, they are Iran. I mean, they've come from Iran, and they are Iranian. Yeah, but they learn German. Right? It just depends on who it is. So the young man that I baptized, and you saw his picture quite a bit, he had encountered Christianity in Iran by kind of like not a street preacher, but a guy who was in the park handing out the Gospel of John and telling people about Jesus. And because of that, he took his pamphlet, and he was at the lowest point of his life, had recently been arrested for dealing drugs, and was released. And then was drunk at the time he was in the park meeting with this guy. The guy said, "Look, you're drunk. You need to come back when you're sober." He went home. He didn't think much about it. When he woke up the next day, he had this pamphlet in his hand, and I think a note from the guy or something went back the next day, and the guy explained to him about Jesus, and he became a believer. But then, because of his legal trouble, his dad basically said, "You have two choices. You can go to Europe, or you can go to jail. But I'm not gonna sort of protect you in my house," and to some extent disowned him because of the things he did. And so he said, "Okay, I'll go to Europe." And I mean, his story is also amazing too. I mean, there's so many times, honestly, that he should not be alive, and God just like, nope, he's not. He's just not done with you. And he brought it to us, and he's really an incredible man. So. Not the German, not exactly. Although they've grown recently, mostly from the Ukrainian refugees that have come in, and they get, they'll get like expats and things like that, or people from Germany that have moved in. The Farsi ones they're very much targeted towards reaching any incoming Farsi speakers and things like that. So the thing that we've found, even with our Farsi and refugee, mostly with the Farsi refugees and the Afghans especially, is you get a lot of turnover. We've really struggled, and I think just in that congregation as well has struggled with, you get them believing in Jesus, they receive asylum, but before they have asylum, they have tons of time. So they will meet with you like every day if you want, because they have nothing else really to do because they're not allowed to work. But then as soon as they get asylum, they have basically two things on their mind. One, to get a place to live, which makes sense, right? And two is to get a job. And so then all of a sudden, those kind of things kind of interrupt this time that they have. And so it's been a struggle for us to translate this idea that it is still important for them to make priorities, at least for Sunday, once they have their asylum. So it's not always, you can argue maybe some of them, okay, maybe their faith just becomes not that important or things like that. But mostly, from my experience, is just the priorities of having a job and having a place to live and, basically starting your life, because your life's basically been on pause for 5 years, takes priority. And faith is always there, but it's like, well, if I get around to it. And so one of the things I did with Sohel was really kind of make that as black and white as I could to him when he got asylum. And yeah, he's really kind of, I think, understood that. So.
What's the dominant religious climate in Austria? Catholic, agnostic?
It is Catholic, but I would say it's moving towards like agnostic or non-religious, like France, right? When we came 16 years ago, it was still very Catholic, but now, it was still like, when we came, it was like 10,000 people were leaving the Catholic Church a year or something, and it still has maintained that about up to this point. And most people will just say, yeah, I don't know what I believe, or they don't know. But it's still very, at least for the Austrians, like their heritage is Catholic. So if you ask them, what are you? Well, I'm Catholic, even though they don't go to Mass, or maybe they were baptized, but they didn't do First Communion or something like that. So.
Kind of going along with that, when you're actually holding these Bible studies with all these different cultures, and you're explaining the Bible to them, do you find like a cultural barrier just between how they're perceiving these things? Like, is there different perceptions and kind of...
Sure, yeah. No, absolutely, there's different perceptions, and you, especially with the Iranians too, the cultural differences, that you do. And so, like with the Austrians, we almost always start with this Bible study called Getting to Know God, because their concept of God is totally skewed, right? And so the idea is to understand the characteristics of God and the characteristics of man from a biblical perspective. So we, when we do this study, we have like a series of verses, and we say, in the study, we say, look, we are going to just assume this is truth, and we're going to only stay, for these guys, it's not such a big deal. When we've done this with like other Church of Christ or people that have of a very strong biblical background, we say we're only going to stay in these verses. So we're not going to jump from Genesis to John to Acts to all that. We're going to stay in this verse and just concentrate on what are we learning from God from these verses, and we kind of build off that. And so that's where we start with the Austrians. With the Iranians, we usually start with the book of John, because it really speaks to kind of their culture and love, and they're coming from murder and power, and the guy who has the money and the power is in charge and he can do whatever he wants to John's gospel of love, and God loves you so much, and this man loves you so much he's willing to give his life. That really, they can identify with that. With them, what we struggle with is the Old Testament, right? Yeah, or even like David, right? Because like some of these Old Testament guys in Islam, like David was, he's like this super famous, awesome king, right? Never makes a mistake. And so like the first time I was making a point about David and Bathsheba, the guy's like, wait, what are you talking about? You're talking about King David? Yeah, King David, yeah. Yeah, he did terrible things. What? No, he didn't. Yeah, he did. And then I was like contemplating, should I destroy this guy's view of David or not? I did destroy it because I thought it was important, right, to understand, look, that this great man, right, who was described as a man after God's own heart, and that's great, he did great things, he can also make mistakes. And the point with that was, you can also make mistakes and still God's going to accept you and love you. So, he took that one kind of hard. I don't know if I would do it quite like that again, but yeah.
I have a couple quick questions.
Yeah.
You talked about the future, you talked about possibly getting a centralized location. Do you have a place kind of selected? And if so, what would that cost? And also, like, what kind of programs do you have in mind to run throughout the week?
Well, no, we don't have anything in mind in terms of location. We thought something that would be centrally located like we are, that's close to, like where the OC facility is, that's close to public transportation. So kind of, something that's not on either extremes of the city, that's close to public transportation, and hopefully also close to maybe one of the main highways so people could get to it easily. We sort of talked about size in terms of it's going to cost a lot. Vienna is super expensive, and real estate in Vienna especially so. But the other thing is, like, the church in Vienna has a huge long history without trying to go through it all. They've really kind of been, they had at one point, they had owned a facility, and it was sold. We're not sure exactly. The story kind of varies about who you ask, what happened with that facility, why they sold it, and others. But the idea was, the promise is they would always kind of have a facility of their own, and that didn't happen. And so we feel like this would be, maybe now is the time to kind of honor that, what they had before. But then with this kind of Longmont idea of that it's also kind of a community place where the community can go. And this time being very, very careful that, because we'll have to get funding from outside. I mean, there's no way they can afford it. We'll have to fundraise for it from the U.S. and probably through Germany, hopefully, and also in Europe. But that everybody understands that this facility is owned by the churches in Vienna, and they can decide its fate in the future. In terms of, let's see, this is where I need my wife. In terms of like what they can offer at this point in the community, I'm not sure. So Hal, he's an interior decorator. We have people who are involved in the health industry or fitness or mentoring. I don't know. To some extent we have a lot. I have a lot of extensive experience with Asylum, so we can, we could open it up and offer, free consultation and things like that, as long as they know that it's, this isn't official legal advice. You know, things like that. Yeah, I'm not sure. But we're excited to dream about what they could offer.
Does the Austrian government have any say in what you do?
No, we fall into a very gray category because we're technically not recognized as a legal entity or legal religion, and so we have a lot of freedom, I guess, with that. But the other thing is, like, we have kind of a nonprofit organization that we started. The other congregation also has a nonprofit. And so, you know, the goal of these nonprofits, you know, we have to look at those, but as long as, you know, the facility meets the goals of the nonprofit, which ours is basically let me think in English, the furthering of the Christian gospel in Vienna and Europe. So as long as the facility is you know, within that, not making money, those kind of things, then, you know, like, our organization could buy a facility. If that makes sense. Yeah, we have like a board, sort of like a board of directors and things like that. It's independent. We don't have to officially give our finances, but we have to make sure that we have it, where if they ask for it, we could provide it, those kind of things. So yeah, although we've been investigated, I don't know, I say this every time because I think it's so cool. We have been investigated by the Catholic Church, and we are not a sect. So we have been cleared. So no, I won't be burned at the stake, at least not right now. So they have student group. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jerry. Yeah, yes and no. So they have student groups that come through, and all the student groups that come through know that, I mean, before when we were worshiping at our house, they knew that they could come anytime, and occasionally we would get a student come on Sunday. They do a lot of traveling on the weekend, so the program is built so where they're usually doing their studies and things during the week, and then they have the weekend to travel. So most of the time on Sundays, they're traveling from wherever they were back to the facility for classes on Monday. But like, I don't know, there was a couple of slides back there. We had a professor that was here doing a class, and they were with us almost every Sunday. And so it's kind of hit or miss depending on which group is there. They're always welcome. We used to have a lot of interaction. Now we don't have as much anymore, just due to the nature of the program. But yeah, it's always something that they're always welcome to be, and you know, we're always kind of looking for opportunities there. But yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah. We really love it though when the students come. It brings a lot of energy, or like this professor, he had his whole family there, and you know, the congregation really just embraced them, and you know, we're usually translating anyways, so. Although if I don't have to translate, I could, sometimes I do a little happy dance. But it keeps it really short, right? I only have to, usually I present like a lesson that's 15, 20 minutes max, maybe, because translating it's going to be like 40 minutes, so. Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it. Of course, we love our Longmont family, and we love being here, and I just, you know, I know I want to embarrass my parents, but I just thank you for embracing them and taking care of them, and you know, it makes my job a little bit easier and less worry when I know that that you guys are taking care of them. So thank you so much.